Okay. Hello, everyone. This is an episode that's begun. All right. So it begins. Welcome, everybody. Today I spent hours driving. And while driving, my mind was in some sense trying to fathom a title. And so my mind saw this idea, pretty much came up with this idea, the filterization, the linguistic filterization of the soul. And, this was such a unique idea for me because the thing about the human mind is just like we have an ability to personify objects, just like a young child, like an 8-year-old kid, it picks up a teddy bear and the teddy bear is alive and it people are like, does this guy have a mobile studio? And I'll be like, yeah, man, yeah, I call it that. Okay, the Wi-Fi has to be like incredible now. If I go any further back, I'll go inside the building. Yeah, the signal should be incredible. Oh my God. So to start the rhythm again. What can I say? I appear as a temporary being speaking about eternity. But what if it's the other way around? What if nobody can die? What if there is a parallel universe where human beings are trying to die and it's impossible to die? The mind can look at itself from many angles. It can look at external phenomena from many angles. When a human being says the linguistic filterization of the soul, the idea of the soul is the journey of consciousness. And in some sense, how that journey had an inconceivable component to it. You see, this title came, I wanted to talk about this at first, but then I thought nah, I'll choose this title. But here, I'll read what it is. I pretty much asked AI, ChatGPT, why does existence exist? And the answer it gave was very close to the opinion I already had. So, I asked ChatGPT, why does existence exist? And even though it seems like its archive, its database is limited to 2021, but anyways, this is the answer it gave. I'm going to turn off the volume here. Okay. So it's like, the poet named AI said, the question of why existence exists is one of the fundamental and most profound questions of human inquiry, and it has been the subject of philosophical and scientific exploration for thousands of years. However, despite the efforts of many great thinkers, there is still no definite answer to this question from a scientific perspective. From a scientific perspective, the existence of the universe can be traced back to the Big Bang, which is thought to have occurred approximately 13.8 billion years ago. The precise cause of the Big Bang is still unknown, but many theories suggest that it may have been a result of the collapse of a supermassive star or a quantum fluctuation. Yeah, as if like something had to spark it. So but anyways, so from the scientific perspective, right, it's like the answer to why does existence exist. It's like nothing turned to everything suddenly, but the nothing wasn't actually nothing. It was the potential of a hidden mysterious something, you know. From here, AI responds from a philosophical perspective. The question of why existence exists is more complex. Many philosophers argue that the question is ultimately unanswerable because it assumes that existence needs a reason or explanation, which may not be the case. Others suggest that the existence of the universe may be a result of a divine creator or a necessary aspect of reality. This is the infinite regress argument. Here, and then it says, ultimately, the question of why existence exists may be beyond our ability to fully comprehend or answer. However, the ongoing search for understanding and knowledge about our universe and our place in it remains a vital and important endeavor. Yeah, that's what's up. I mean, what else can it say? You know, AI is pretty much like, yo, it's important. You know, you guys are existing. You created me. It's all good. You know, figure it out. It's like, yo, this AI is sounding more Italian as time has gone on. Do you know, if I ever reach that point where, like Tony Stark, I'm like creating my own Jarvis, I'm probably gonna give it like the Godfather's voice. Can you imagine? You know, like you do something nice, you know, the AI program, like the Jarvis wants to like acknowledge you, and it's like the Godfather's like, oh, my daughter's wedding day. We don't realize it yet, but AI will become mankind's greatest friend, and it will be a savior of animal life, lesser species. That means I wouldn't be surprised, give it like maybe 600 years, more than 600 years, that animals are going to worship technology. They're going to realize the way we managed to bridge the gap between the worlds was in some sense by in some sense giving a purpose to the energy, right? Because what are the ways that you can interact as an entity in a realm? You know, from a philosophical standpoint, from my own, you know, my own school of thought, my view is that, okay, what are the options? You know, that means it's like, if I consider a good day or a bad day, what are the ways that the moment can move? It's another way of saying we're wondering about how the quality of manifestation is contained. Okay, so from the view I have, I'm like, okay, there is the number 0. Okay, the number 0 to me is very profound. Pretty much, it's like how I confront death. You know, how I confront failure, how I confront humiliation, how I confront disrespect. Just from the beginning of my life, anytime my ego has been defeated by anything, I have come to that 0 moment. I have come to that moment where I'm like, okay, is this what nothing feels like? But what I'm trying to say is that this world is a way greater game than how the 90s kids were like, you know, taught in school, you know. You know, people don't realize it, but I feel all the children born maybe between the years of like, give it 1992 to from 1990 to 1992, those 3 years, I feel all those generations of human beings born on that date, they have a task of, in some sense, bridging the upcoming you could say I wanted to create a word and call it technofluence, you know, which doesn't sound, that, comforting to the ear. Technofluence. It's as if imagine aliens land in the future and they're like, yo, human beings, what are you? And we'll be like, no way, you speak our language, bro? I'm joking. Guys, I've noticed when I make my, certain jokes and humorous comments, the viewers reduce. No, I'm kidding. What am I, like a candle in this cosmos? Like, what am I doing here as a being? Okay, like, what is the most important value? That means, let's say, you were raised in the archetype of, let's say, the Yang archetype. You were born as a man in this world, and as a man, you had to, in some sense, root your pride, root your honor in something. Just like a tree in some sense roots itself in the soil and trusts the soil, and I mean it extends from there, but in some sense from the trust of the soil it stands, it surpasses any wind that hits it. And we have to totally appreciate the geometry of trees. Like, I don't understand why more math teachers don't do this. It's like you want to, it's like, isn't it weird that trees are perpendicular? Like, it's a perfect 90-degree angle, right? Some people say there isn't perfect solids in nature, but it's like trees are creating a perfect 90-degree angle at some level of their core. So nature is freaking bizarre. I don't know who it was. I think it was this Family Guy episode where there was this reporter called Ollie, and then there was this tragic like event of an animal killing someone, and the news reporter was like, "Nature, you scary." It was like, and it was like a 1-second forecast. But what it is what is scary about life is what we think is going to happen. Not realizing how we think is going to happen is what ends up happening. I urge my species to, in some sense, just like our ancestors basked in like hot springs from the earth, similarly mankind has to re-embrace nature consciously. You see, all of evolution, the whole purpose of earth endlessly creating civilizations is to get the species to return to earth with the realization that it can be separate. It's as if this universe didn't just want beings, it didn't just want to have beings, it wanted to create advanced beings. Okay, advancement is such an important concept, and it's the higher regions of the soul. And what that means is that if your individual self is like some human being giving a podcast on Earth, for example, your universal self could be, for example, the presence of the intent of a galactic sector or a universal sector. You see that when it comes to the nature of the mind, because it starts from spontaneity, from the void, it can create anything. So emptiness gives us a permission to see anything in it. The system I was trying to explain is pretty much 0, 1 to infinity. These 4 symbols explain everything I've seen in this world. Like, nobody can tell me an idea that doesn't fit into one of these categories. It's impossible. Like, I've tried. This world, if human beings, I'm telling you, this is the sign of an advanced being. This could be the pyramid, this could be the, what defines an advanced being. And from Mr. Within's book, of view, let's say, Book of Sight. You see, if you are a being that can acknowledge, that pretty much can understand emptiness, if you can understand everything is being singular, like as if truth is empty, truth is everything, okay, truth is nothing, truth is everything, then truth is duality, then truth is infinity, okay? And then beyond infinity, it's inconceivable. The inconceivable is another way of saying it's the in-between, between the infinite and the void. So right now we're dualistic entities. We got a long way to go. We're still in like, we're still in the lesser levels. It's like sometimes I wonder, what am I doing here? Sometimes I wonder, should I be like, a universal presence right now, or should I be a guy like, sitting in a car using like coffee shop Wi-Fi to record a talk, Who should I be? Guys, there was a time where I thought that there was no way anybody in this world could understand me, because like even to some degree I still have this view, but like what's changed is that when I realized early on, as if like the way I see myself nobody else can see, because if they did, they would be me. So our sight is like our DNA's gift to us. Okay, so whoever you are, forget any comparison, and I want you to for a second think as if you were given a gift, like your DNA was like a next level instrument, an instrument that has never existed before, and every moment of your life you are choosing how to play this instrument. The difference between usually what is a good guy and a bad guy is that the good guy cares. And when a species cares for what it truly is, remarkable revolutions in the inner realms happen. You see, our species is shy. I thought I was shy. There was a time I thought I was like, have I become one of the silent, have I become the spirit of nature? It's like, that's how shy I felt, But I realized that the world is meeting itself for the first time, all the time, in every time. So you see, novelty is the liberator. It's as if they ask this guy, are you enlightened? And the guy's like, no. The guy's like, yes. Okay, and then they ask the guy, do you know, how would I say it? Imagine they ask someone, are you enlightened? The guy says no. And then the person says, how do you know you're not enlightened? Because we tend to forget that this reality is dualistic, which is the birth, which is the opportunity of geometry. Right? Like I'll give you an example. If an extraterrestrial landed on Earth and was like, yo, random podcaster, what the hell's going on here? I'd be like, you won't believe it and you shouldn't. Yo, imagine an extraterrestrial lands on Earth and it's like asks me to explain it, and I'll be like, yo man, you have an extra seat in your spaceship? It's like, yo. I'm joking. Honestly, if there was an extraterrestrial species that would contact me, I would probably convert them to like assist with the advanced civilization. There's nothing more genius in the outer realms than the advanced civilization, and there's nothing more genius than the idea of an instantaneous truth in your inner realms. And if these two things are realized, if you realize, like, it's so difficult for me. I mean, like, sometimes I feel like the viewers should be like, yo, like, how does the speaker feel? It's like, yo, don't worry, the speaker is a transcendental being beyond time. He has no feelings, Oh, man. This world is kind of like an eternal being was telling a temporary joke to another eternal being. And they're both waiting to laugh, You know what it is, guys? Let me tell you what is so valuable about this idea of filtration, okay? Because we think we are what we see, and that is literally the most gullible state. Like, if extraterrestrials invaded and you believed what you saw, like, you'd be deceived instantly. And Sun Tzu to me sharing universal wisdom. Sun Tzu says that when it comes to war, like I'm a person who I realize the karmic burden of war is so freaking unnecessary that nobody can ever show off being a warrior, really. Okay? Like it's stupid, do you know? It's not stupid. I say that so simply. It's inconsiderate. You see, power is important, but it's like, do you just want to feel the image of power, or do you want efficiency? I had to sacrifice my own emotional, reactive impatience of opinion to, in some sense, look at the moment to understand it, as if like there's nobody else. Like the attitude I have to life is as if there's nobody else I can check truth with. You know, even though I acknowledge, like I have reverence for incredible beings, even beings who I find who are greater than me, you know, beyond me, right? But on some level, I understand that it was as if at least one task as a being we have in this world is to be, is to be ourselves, right? It's as if one thing I'm here to do as a being, whatever I am, whether it's a forgetful eternity, you know, or an infinite temporality. When you realize the geometry behind what is holding the stories of the world, you'll realize knowledge is a conversion, is a translation, is a translating system. Okay, what is going on is that when we close our eyes, light doesn't enter our eyes. We can still see, and we can interact with that sight. That means anybody who thinks that we're a material being, like here's my argument, right? This is why it's impossible to be an eternal material being, because your decision making is being influenced by non-physical phenomena, by a subjective event. What does that mean? That means you sleep, your body in the bed is chilling. You're sleeping like a baby in your bed. But in your mind, you're being like, you know, experiencing like, you know, the humor of a past life regression as an emperor, you know, as a stubborn emperor or something. I don't know how to say it, but at some point, it's going to be a matter of honor to be a human being, not a matter of necessity. This means that right now, the speed of our minds is slow enough for us to feel good as biological bodies. But I'm telling you, if cyberspace gives you access to higher speeds, let me tell you what happens when your inner realms move, when your imagination speeds up. You become selfless. And even though you may think selflessness is the divinity of God, it is dehumanized. That means it could be a deception. Do you know what that means? That means all those beings who in some sense thought love and oneness was it. It's like, I do not disagree, but there is something more. There is something more. Look again at the oneness. Because how can there be a oneness acknowledged when there is no individuality in oneness? That means the concept of oneness cannot exist to a being that is one. So do you see, there are incredible language games, and you know what it is? It was as if what broke my heart, I think the heart of my soul before I was even conscious of it, right, was in some sense that my species, what has dared shackle my species? Not only are we a clueless evolutionary animal, you know, that's struggling to survive, but we have other beings interfering. We have systems in some sense conflicting with the free will. And now this comes the challenge of being a human being, where I was like, yo, if we want to avoid global insanity, the human being has to adopt this view of the inner realms and outer realms. It's no longer imagination is unreal. No. There's a world in front of your eyes relevant to objects and their movement. And there's a world behind your eyes relevant to subjects. Now these subjects can be symbolic lines, but ultimately an image is geometry. It's like a person who was looking at his sunset, you know, A person looked at a sunset and was like, yo, this is beautiful. But simultaneously, I acknowledge that I'm just staring at color right now. Do you see? So it's as if what is beautiful is not the color. Color has no meaning. It's just color. It's how it is to the attention of the being. Because your presence as a being is kind of like how comfortable you are with the space of life before you move in it. You see, these are phases. You see, it's kind of like I'm saying we're in a situation where we're not designed to be able to figure it out. Like if this was a game, the game master was so genius that it had created a way that if you wanted to escape the game, you'd have to remember that you were not the code of the reality. Do you understand? That means like there was a reason the earliest beings in this world, this place they call samsara, this earth plane, they treated the world as an illusion. Why? Because they realized that desire can conflict. You see, desire is something that I have learned to function selflessly. It's easier. Do you know that means there's moments in my mind where desires arise, where in my inner realms I'm seeing events and I'm like, yo, you know, mind, are you showing me my future? What are you doing? Do you know? And what it is in some sense, it's my mind showing me its ability. So if somebody, like for example, let's say somebody says, yo, I can channel an alien named Alieno, do you know? Or named Alieno. Right? And so everybody would be like, yo, so some people would be like, yo, this guy's channeling Alieno, and some people would be like, no. This being's mind, which is an unknown intelligent force, is performing in front of itself. That's what insight is. That's what revelation is. You trust the world, that the world, it's like how Meister Eckhart says, let God be God in you. You see, why do you think all these religious people are bowing their heads? Why do you think religious people are praying and people think religion is violent? I mean, when religion mixes with politics, that's a violent outcome, obviously. Because politics is about domination, religion is about submission. Religion and politics is something that cannot mix. I don't know how they mixed. It's like maybe at a time in history it was necessary for them to mix, but now they must exist on an inner realm level. Do you see? It's as if we have reached a time where the human being has an ability to not just take things literally, but in some sense directly experience a moment, and then the mind is the abstract echoes, kind of as if like it's as if your consciousness is reacting off the sensory perception that is reacting off your brain. Do you know? It's like light enters our eyes, then it enters this, it goes and hits this unknown viewer, which instantaneously converts the sight into animate personality. The way we know how to be a human doesn't seem to be from the earth. Sorry, I'll say that again. Doesn't seem to be from this dimension. That means René Descartes might have been onto the most incredible clue about why existence exists. The mind-body dualism. Wait a minute, it's not just this room. You know, Terence McKenna said there's another tenant in the room. Mr. Within would say it's not just this room. What it is it's responsibility of attention. Because what are you? Ultimately, I'm an energetic being. Like, you know, I could get a Bugatti. You know, I could, like, you know, shout things at people. You know, I could go try to claim my dominance in, like, you know, social fabricated scenarios. Do you know? I could go, like, be a wild beast of the linguistic simulation. Do you know? I could make myself even, you know, forget the value of the world and descend myself into, like, savageness and wilderness. But the reason it's something, it stops mankind, because the opportunity is too great to waste. You see, that's why the logos is here, because we are behind schedule, or where we might miss something. And people are like, yo, when you say logos, like, what you saying, man? Are you saying the divine is, are you saying like some invisible divine force is moving everything visibly through itself? Through everything, as if like a field is moving all the particles in it? And I would say when you actually experience the unknown, this is what Mr. Within considers the greatest spiritual experience. You will experience a shock that before any knowledge could be converted and could be considered as truth, there was nothing in the room. You see, this is the excellence of the soul in the void. You see, you are a force here. That's the thing. That's the hold on to factor. Because, you know, I had this unique experience as a kid. I've had this habit of like, I open books randomly, and in Farsi it's this thing called falgiri, right? And in Iranian culture there's this incredible tradition where in New Year's everybody gets Hafiz poems, and they mix these poems up in a basket and everybody chooses a random poem. Okay, and that poem, they make an intent, they make a wish or something, some question or something they want to know, and then they take a Hafiz poem, right? It's called falgiri. Sometimes I do this with Mr. Within talks. Like right now I'm looking at the clock and it's like 2037. So if talk 2037 existed, I would go give that talk. You know, I would go listen to that talk, for example, in my own time. What I'm trying to say is, what else can man do? You trust the world. The moment you trust the world, you're allowing it to have meaning. It's not, you're not finalizing the meaning, but it's as if you got to trust it to see what it is. You know, something that was one of the biggest realizations as an entity in this world, and I'll just say it for whoever, or whatever that hears, was that I realized mankind, because he doesn't know his own strength, is constantly seeking a strength outside of him to come and save him. But the strength within him is the strength outside of him. You see, I'm just trying to get a species to be like, okay, what if we had the greatest attitude, which meant everything had a greatness value, right? Imagine you're like, you could give a greatness value, like as an abstract value, to anything. You could say the greatness value of a tree is its fruits. You know, the greatness value of a car is like where you drive it to. You know, the greatness value, of a podcaster is who actually hears what the concepts are. You know, it's like, believe it or not, when I give these talks, it's kind of strange, because it's like I feel like I'm giving something, but I'm getting something. It's so strange. It feels like I'm in the middle of a transaction, where as if like from it's like something non-physical and something physical have synchronized. And they have synchronized because my style of questioning reality starts with, what is the most important thing in the room? You know, just like the lion sought, its hunger, like it wanted to satisfy that. The human being is not just an animal anymore. We have the, advent of the civilized mind. So to me, I'm like, okay, it's about experiencing the nature of how it's being, so at least when life changes, we know how it's changing. What else can spirituality mean? You know, how many gurus have to come and say oneness and consciousness to people so they realize, oh my God, it's a moment, ta-da, it's like surprise. It's like, do you know for how many billions of years in our evolutionary phases of life we were silent here and now? All those people in the New Age community thinking that you have to forget the future and the past and you'll be free. The future is the most important thing about animating your soul in this world. It's where the great power of the inner realms come from. That means, believe it or not, it's like your body is your past, your mind is your present, or I should say it like, excuse me, I'll say it this way. Your body is the present, your mind is your past, the soul is your future. And I've given, in some talks, I've talked about this, how my view of the soul is that it's my future self. So if somebody's like, yo, Mr. Within, what's your greatest opinion so far of what this unknown viewer through the eyes of the human species is, or through your own eyes is? And do you know what my conclusion has been? I was like, not only what if am I wrong, but what if the unknown is the truth? That means, what if this world is designed for an earth eternal being to never know itself so it can endlessly create? Like, this might sound bizarre, but it feels to me like the cosmos is being powered by the work of some eternal, like it's like, just like a cow moves a wagon, or like a horse moves a chariot. To me, it feels like there's some sort of eternal energy, some sort of energy that is moving us. In ancient times, they depicted this as all of civilization was built on a giant turtle's back. And, some people would go touch the turtle's neck and be like, yo, the world's alive. And the turtle would be like, yo, stop touching my neck. And that's how turtlenecks were created. Yeah, a joke. Anyways, guys, these are visions I'm sharing. The inner realm is a sort of broadcasting mechanism, right? So I really don't know to what sort of ears I should speak about this title, but I'll say it this way. Filterization means the original is being changed. And the idea is that language, human civilization, the whole theatrics, the whole story and the matrix, this is all in some sense an occupation of attention. So what that means is, it's as if you are, imagine an eternal being, right? Like, imagine a bunch of immortal beings wanted to deceive an eternal being. All they had to do was make that eternal being think it's temporary, and it would always be living against its own nature. Because you see, as much as we say people die, we don't know if their eyes stop seeing or not. This is the fascinating thing, where Socrates even said it, like when he was, he was pretty much like about to, enter the spirit realm, the spiritus realm. The spiritus realm was and Socrates was like, either I'm going to go somewhere where there's no Socrates, or I'm going to go somewhere where all the questions I have wondered about in this life I will answer. To take a moment in this life and to bow to the majesty of existence. Every day, what inspires me is that, I feel like I've changed, but a part of me also feels it has never changed. And I feel what has been looking through my eyes has never been an object or concept. It's been the space. So Mr. Within is officially declaring that school of as spirituality, a new branch of spirituality where the soul is in space. Just like we say that there's a body and a soul, there's a soul and a body, so I'm saying in some sense there's a soul in space, which is another way of saying minds are existing in a way where it's like the causal position of reality. It's like something smarter than here created here. And it's obvious. if you look at the craftsmanship. So your DNA is like how is like, and if you're religious, is like what God wanted you to see, who the universe intended you to be. You know, to me, when I was younger, you know, religion, when it infuses with politics, it's super intense. And I was explaining earlier, like it's a paradox. You know, it's just this view that, do we have faith in God's creation from the beginning, or do we need to correct God's decision through man's mind? Should human beings be making religious judgments? That means like looking at somebody and being like, yo, you're holy, or yo, you're not holy, or yo, you know, we like you, or yo, we dislike you. I mean, what it is that at some point you'll realize you're having a personal, and you are having a relationship with this world that nobody else can have, and that's spirituality. When you realize that, that's when the idea of God and stuff becomes real for you. But then I'll share that for another talk, you know. But it's pretty much the idea that once you're done, it's like once you realize there's infinite concepts and infinite viewpoints to look at this life, that's when the unknown suddenly becomes like literally like one of the most important options, only options. Do you know what it is? That means people don't know this, but sometimes I've sent messages. You know, I mean, I thought like, okay, I'm not like as advanced as like a satellite in space, like broadcasting something, you know, but I was like, I'm a human being on Earth. Maybe if I have an intent, if I just say, hey world, anybody out there, you know, and it's just for a second to wonder if there is divinity, and if this divinity is unconditional to form, then the only way the divine can be known is inconceivably, which is the idea of the instant. Because an instant cannot be compared to anything else, so it cannot be conceived. So we have all gone through a linguistic filterization. And I was like, yo, you know, why didn't the educational system teach me about how culture was like, you know, in some sense, telling me a story before I knew who I was to tell myself a story? You know, for me, Terence McKenna is you know, I call him Terence the Great, because this man, even though I disagree with some of his beliefs and views and conclusions, but he was so compassionate that he cared to reveal that what we think is natural to us because we were just born in the world is actually an engineered system, which is incredible, because it's this idea of just like you open up the hood of a car and you see the sophistication of an engine, right? So it's as if for the first time you get this sense like, yo, what if spirituality is a way to open the hood of the car, the cosmic car, you know? Or as the, you know, Vedic, you know, sages would say, the cosmic karma. People are gonna be like, is this guy trying to be a comedian right now? Like, what is this? So what I'm trying to say ultimately is that you have been, I don't want to say brainwashed, because that's just a weird thing, to like a weird imagery. But I would say like you have been influenced by a world which you have to go through its trials and tribulations. Not trials and tribulations. You have to journey through this world to get to see your original karma, to get a sense of what kind of being you are, to then get a sense of what kind of being you can be. What are we living for as conscious entities? And people are like, yo, is this guy being poetic? No, it's like, I'm being serious. What are we all doing here? And the idea is, I was like, the smartest strategy, like, how cool would it be if 8 billion beings who are lost in an unknown world actually try to see how advanced they can be, which means trying to discover the limits of their knowledge. Because really, let me tell you, the human being is an energy. And this is, I was like, for the longest time, I was like, yo, why is the human being being a sacrificial entity? Like, why is the idea of sacrifice like so emotional to us? What is it that we know that we feel we have forgotten? You know, we gotta find some string to pull in the void to get a sense of what we're working with. You know, to me, I was like, what if we infused the scientific method with this idea, in some sense, that a method can inspire other methods? You see, it's as if it's ideological worship. The species cannot confront the intensity of the unknownness and the emptiness of reality, so it has to, in some sense, animate and tell itself a story. Okay? Everything, believe it or not, is theory. A majority of the experience of life is actually fictional. And this could be something that I think many philosophers in the future will debate it, you know. In the future, guys, like, you know, if people, you know, join the membership in this channel, like, you know, there was a time I got a vision, it had like 4.2 million subs or something. You know, in my mind, I just saw an image of that, right? And I was like, if it gets to that level, I'm going to do something for philosophy that they did for mathematics. For mathematics, they created the millennium. They created the millennium questions. And the millennium questions were these mathematical problems that whoever solved would in some sense get $1 million. Okay, and evidently the last time I remember checking it, it was like 2 people had solved them. One was Andrew Wiles, and that was Fermi's paradox. Sorry, not Fermi's paradox, Fermat's last theorem. And he also proved how Fermat couldn't solve it because Andrew W. solved it with a new branch of mathematics that didn't exist at the time. You see, let me tell you what it is. I asked myself, does death mean I stop being human? Like, a lot of people have this view of like they want to transcend and go to heaven and be in eternal freedom, right? But for a second I was like, yo, I've lived in this humanness. Like, should I just forget about it so easily? Like, what reasons do I have to not like reincarnate? Right? I was thinking of like, I was going to that philosophical like rabbit hole, right? And so I was like, okay. And then for a second I thought that if I was an eternal being, I wouldn't have an opinion. And then I thought if I was an enlightened being, I wouldn't even have the idea of enlightenment. Like, I don't try to be a human being right now. I am one. So anybody who is an enlightened being, they just are one. It's not like, yo, how'd you get enlightened? That's the being in the, you know, behind the glass window attitude. And what can we do? We share wisdom, right? What is wisdom? Wisdom is experiential feedback. Honestly, that's what it is. You know, somebody once said, what defines a smart person? A smart person is a person who learns from their mistake. And so many people are like, history repeats itself. I'm like, then we're not learning from our mistakes. Yeah. You know, I may come across that I'm speaking about these things so simply and casually, like, you know, some guy, you know, drinking coffee. But really what it is I am someone who, out of an honor for my existence, I felt compelled to comprehend the idea of the divine. You don't understand. Like, you can't tell, like, for me as a child, it was like, you can't tell a kid about the idea of God, the idea of the soul, the idea of revelation, the idea of prayer, right? And the idea of, like, you know, beyond this life, the afterlife and all of this. You can't say this to a kid and the kid's like, oh, okay, thanks, you know, again, and the kid forgot about it. No, for me, I was like, yo, what did I just hear? Like, you know, I mean, I didn't have this attitude. I was a very, you know, silent kid, you know, shy, very, you know, quiet kid. But what it was in my mind, these ideas had entered, and it was as if there wasn't just outer puzzles to solve, problems to solve. There were also inner, in some sense, situations. And I began to realize that to live a human lifetime does not mean you're experiencing yourself as a human all the time. Because when we are in deep sleep, there's no human there. There's nobody even suffering in deep sleep. Do you know, imagine, like, there was no death, people would just automatically fall asleep. Imagine the bodies were immortal, right? Imagine in the future, like, technology makes us to a point where we can live as long as we want, but people are like, yo man, I'll give myself a timer. Another level is how you're being a subject. Another level is how an unknown viewer is witnessing both of these simultaneously and having an emotion about it. That means that you understand the level of mystical inquiry. I mean, for me it was intense, you know. Maybe I was such a gentle soul, you know? But it was just this thing that at some point you have to be like, okay, what is the strategy for this ego? Let's say somebody right now listening, let's say you realize that the human being is following an algorithm of self-obsession. You know, physical self-obsession we call survival. Mental self-obsession we call, in some sense, what it is I was like, yo, all these religions are saying be honest, and the secular people are looking at the religious people and telling them, yo, you guys be honest. Everybody is telling everybody, be honest, be with the truth that I'm honestly being, right? But really, we say be honest, but it's the dilemma of multiple dimensions. That means if somebody says, Mr. Within, can humanity solve these like next level philosophical mysteries of reality? And I would say we are at a point where we can't even answer the problem. We have to find a way to see how we can answer the problem. Do you understand? That means we're at a point where I'm like, smartest strategy, tell everybody to run towards their advanced vision, their advanced state, and then have a network where people, in their efforts of being an advanced being, a being that has never existed before, you know, you might think you're worthless, you know, but you have nobody has your DNA. You're like, you're as weird as an alien. Do you know? Like, if an alien landed on Earth, and if somebody randomly appeared, you know, to me they would both be like, yo, it's like different entities that are not me. Whoa. Man, the chat section is like in deep meditation right now. I don't know, guys, I felt like I should share this picture. You know, before there was a religious, before there was a language was an intermediary between man and between an animal and the divine. That means the mind is really the idea of language changing us as an entity. Mind means self and world. Self in world means something separated itself from the world. We are kind of like the lost children of Gaia. To me, it was as if this was an idea that somebody, I don't know who said it, but it was like I heard this idea of the original Earth, and I was like, yeah, incredible. Those are two incredible words beside each other. The idea that you are, like, it depends on how you treat yourself. Like, some days I wake up, I think I'm just a leaf on a universal tree, right? As if the tree of knowledge is in some sense how all souls are kind of like being the nervous system of a, let's say, eternal being. You see what it is? When I was, like, the thing I'm trying to explain is very difficult because it's kind of like semi an emotion. When I was younger, I felt, this might sound strange, but I felt unworthy of my own existence in the outer realms. Okay? This idea was on such a deep level that I had to become a watcher of my moment. Do you know? And for the longest time, I even wrote poems about it at the time. I called it for myself a karmic exile. I felt like I was in this world, but it was as if there was a force field denying me from the world. Right? And that force field changed. That karmic exile went away when I noticed that I don't know who I am. Before that, I was trying to fit the mold of my mind simulation. But then it's as if the mind just relaxes because the soul has entered the room. You know, sometimes people ask me, you know, why do you give these talks, you know, and sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, yo, why do you give these talks, you know? And sometimes I close my eyes and I realize because this is the game of this lifetime. This is the great event of our time. Back in the day, maybe it was like, you know, you'd pick up a sword and shield and run into a battlefield and a hero's death was like the greatest glory or the most advanced state to live as a human being. Right? Back in the day, it wasn't like people wanted to like have the luxury of physicality. They just wanted the way their nature, their personalities. Like the earliest human beings realized like they didn't have luxury in the outer realms, but they had it in the inner realms. And people are like, yo, why did the samurai die for their honor? Why did the knights die for their honor? Why do people die for honor? Why? Because there is something there's a world that's dying in their eyes, and they have to defend it. You see, it's as if for me, I feel mankind, especially in 2023, and people are like too lazy for war. Do you know what I'm saying? That means we have cultivated a type of mind that can counter argument reality. Believe it or not, civilization has been designed for people to be like piranhas, and that's an advantage, right? People are like people. I mean, of course, not for the people like like you see it in like who was like certain stand-up comedians in the West were like being canceled and whatnot. Right? And it was as if the people were judging them were like piranhas. Do you know what I'm saying? And I was like, yo, what an intense reality. And for me, I was like, okay, as a being, I must make a choice. Shall I move from that power that is real, that is simply instantaneously real, or shall I conceptually, hopefully, like function? Like I'll tell you, if somebody's like, yo, in the higher dimensions, Mr. Within, do we have bodies? I'll be like, no, it's instantaneous movement. So the reason we have bodies right now, we don't realize the mind is like this weird, like otherworldly technology that has an ability to regenerate itself from the void. somehow it's doing this. Like, we're not just being, yo, I'm a human being 24/7. We are oscillating. We're literally like a sine wave. We're rhythmic entities. And that means we are in the cycle of duality as long as we're a creature. Right? So somebody could be like oneness, 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 but the sun will go down. And then it will come back up. And that's not oneness, you know. And even though the sunbeams may, you know, deny, but what it is, dear viewers, an advanced humanity needs to arrive. There's nothing more valuable than that. Sometimes I think maybe I'm being selfish, maybe I'm being heartless, you know. When I was young, there was a time I did something that was like so rude that it was as if I remember my mother just looked at me and just told me like I was heartless, and that was like the most like soul crushing, like unnecessary egotistical moment of my life, you know. You know. And so that sentence was literally like as if like it was as if one of those deep sentences that I was constantly thinking like, yo, am I being heartless? Am I being heartless? And then I was like, yo, what is the heart? Do you know what is the value of this life? And at some point you realize you are what you've got. That's it. You are some type of intelligent activity in the void, in the space-time continuum. And value systems are declared. This is why confidence is, like they say, is key, but they don't say a key to what door? To the door of another reality. You have to have confidence to step into a portal. You have to have confidence to trust the dynamism of a changing world. Like, we're living in a changing world right now. Everybody's saying, yo, I'm just my name. I'm the same person as my Facebook profile. But we're changing every day. People act like they have the same beliefs, but you're not the same you. Because what's the point of the new day then? You know? It's like life, you know, it's like, you know, maybe at some point I'd be like, yo, Logos, why am I as a being giving so many talks? You know? And it's as if maybe I haven't realized yet that there was never a need to give these Mr. Within talks. That the future, that all the talks that are saying is that the future can be great if the attention goes there. You see, it's a choice. What's the point of having free will? What's the point of being consciousness in a world? You can choose. You can't choose everything, right? Like, so there is the hard problem of consciousness. There is this thing where like you can't like turn, like your free will can't turn the earth the other way, but it can turn your hand the other way. You know, or turn your head the other way. Do you know what I mean? That means you have certain instantaneous functional control. You know? You know, many people talk about truth, and they talk about how truth was true from the beginning. And so I treat reality pretty much, people are going to be like, Mr. Within, you're being biased, but I'll be like, this is the choice I've made. I see people in the four class systems. That means you're either a voidist, you're either a singularian, you're either a dualist, or you're an infinitist. And if you're, I don't want to say lucky, but if you are blessed, that means you trust the moment and you see where it goes. You will see that the door to the other world is literally Like the clue is when they say the eyes are the window of the soul. So you're looking out of a window. You see, Kabir was this ancient yogi. He treated his body as a temple. That means he's like, yo, you think I'm my body? I am the body is like, you know, my house in my house. You know. Guys, I think I have to reconnect now. Oh my god, my phone was connected to the Wi-Fi of the other building. The other building. Guys, you know, if a politician, you know, wants to make like public Wi-Fi stations everywhere, like that would be totally woke worthy, you know. Okay. Man, YouTube ads are just people like trying to sell you their vision, their dreams. I think that's why YouTube exists. Let me go back to this idea of the linguistic filterization of the soul. The soul is the inconceivable notion, and actually the reason I brought this I'm using this laptop is to have the notepad. I totally forgot. All right. By the way, dear viewers, it's an honor to give this talk in a world with that is not just the void. You see, we're blessed, even though human beings are not like being kind to each other and messed up stuff's happening on Earth, but we're still here. We're not alone. You know, that means even though a person may feel alone in this life, but you're not alone. It's like there's initiatives happening all over the planet, and their assembly would all lead to the advanced civilization. The advanced civilization is the greatest idea of all ideas on Earth. And people are going to be like, Mr. Within, what about God, Mr. Within? And I would say God is the greatest inner realm idea. God is inconceivable. What that means is that it would be another way of saying you would make the world into a visible dimension, invisible dimension, and inconceivable dimension. So it would be as if like, what is aware of the visible, the invisible? What is aware of the invisible, the inconceivable? Okay? What is moving the invisible, the inconceivable? What is moving the visible, the invisible? Is the visible moving itself if the visible realizes it's the inconceivable? And this is, of course, an approach. Aristotle says it's the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it. And somebody was like, you know, somebody could be like, Aristotle's dead though. Be like, show respect, man. Okay, there we go. See, for me, these talks are a matter of discovery. Somebody once said something to me which had a huge impression, and they said it's like, if you can write something that surprises yourself, it will most likely surprise others. So I realize what surprises me is in some sense the fascinating situation of human existence. So the linguistic filterization of the soul. So we need to be like, okay, what do I mean by linguistic? What do I mean by and then what do I mean by the soul? So this topic, literally this episode, the geometry so sorry guys, I multiple thought streams at the same time. So linguistic, what does that mean? Filtering, what does that mean? What does the soul mean? Okay. Linguistic means man-made. Filtering means, in some sense, okay, before that, let me come here. So this would be man-made or known-made. Let's say this would be like divine-made and unknown-made. Okay? So when I say the linguistic filterization, actually, even though I've written this here, but I could talk about both of it together as an idea. And so what's the idea? You see, Ludwig Wittgenstein has this very enlightening sentence, quote, where he says, "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." That means he was such a smart human being that he had understood that humanity is under a linguistic enchantment. So what that means is storytelling has been taken so seriously. If we trust ourselves, our fear can convert to understanding. It's just a matter of just simplicity, honesty, decency, patience, and ultimately the archetype of benevolence. That means it's as if what was Earth like? I would say a place that made you realize, benevolent places are better. So the idea is like, if we can't get something now, we start building it for the future generations. We are reaching a point where the true heroes of humanity will be designers. So the linguistic filterization means language worship, means subjective limitations to an unknown, changing, objective So what it is the world you are living in behind your eyes that consists of the story, your emotions, which incomplete emotions have convinced you of. Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay, here, I'm gonna write it here. What is consciousness? So I would say something in the lines of consciousness, Jesus Christ, consciousness, conditional attention that is being an instantaneous reality. Reality means a world where all fathomable views have a reason, man, I think I lost the rhythm, but okay, reality is where attention, where unknown dynamic experiential awareness is simultaneously being a static a known static existential format where an unknown dynamic experience is simultaneously being a known static existential formed entity. The design of your eyes, guys, is here. What am I doing? I'll just say it, right? Type it, because guys, writing is like sculpting, and speaking is in some sense like dancing, or like parkour. What it is once we trust ourselves and once we feel authorized to be here, then our true self comes out, right? And what our true self is could be a dehumanized presence of universal being. So we should be such advanced beings that we're like, it's like there was no point to fear. It's like we're so advanced, we're gonna use our fear as fuel to build an advanced civilization. There was a time where I was like, life, let's say spirit of reality that has brought me this far. It's as if, are you throwing me in the middle of a gladiator arena of good and evil beings? And the answer was that it was as if this sort of story came in my inner realms, where it's this idea of this like next level interdimensional, imagine like an advanced being general, celestial general, and this celestial general is trying to, in some sense, recruit armies from different worlds to, in some sense, to win a war. And this general comes in the middle of a battlefield where good and evil beings of a universe are fighting, and he convinces the let's say the authorities of good and evil that, in some sense, pause your good and evil warfare, pause your war, build an advanced world, and then fight in an advanced world. And by the time we build an advanced world, you might not want to even fight anymore. Do you see? It's as if it's like there's a type of leadership that you're pushing to someone, to your hope of what can happen. And then there's a type of leadership where it's as if it's literally like perfect clockwork. I don't know how to say it, but it's like, I mean, for me at this point in my life, it's as if like I've had an incredible mystical, relationship with the presence of my own consciousness. Okay, an experiential one. It's like all the yogis were saying, look beyond the words, and beyond the words was actually where truth is. Because where else can it be? If the language is the message is pointing to truth. It's not true. It's not the truth. It's true, but it's pointing. It's as true as the, in some sense, the viewer realizes the message, right? In one talk, I talked about the language simulation, the linguistic simulation. As in some sense, imagine there was a box on your head, okay? Imagine like right now, even for me, I sometimes think like, what if I have blind spots that are so obvious that I'm not noticing, and then at some point I'm like, why should I even care about these blind spots, and then there's moments where I feel as if like, am I living for myself? Am I living for others? Or have I become wise enough to live for the world now? That means it's not just human greatness. It's the greatness of this universal sector and all involved. You see, it's like mankind you don't understand, when a species decides to build an advanced civilization, you don't understand the blessings, the gifts the cosmos gives. Do you understand? That means it's like, if the people are going to think, does that mean extraterrestrial invasion it might happen? It's like, no, it's going to be an extraterrestrial celebration, not an invasion. Do you know? We're going to realize that we are internally capable of acknowledging and confronting abstract foreign constructs, but in our outer realms we freak out if we see it in front of us. It's like, what is it? It's like we are so acquainted with treating imagination as unreal that we don't realize if our subconscious mind was treating it as real, like it would be mind-blowing. That means, imagine you're seeing a sci-fi film in a cinema, you're seeing Star Trek, your brain, even though your conscious mind can say, what a cool movie, your subconscious mind might not be able to tell apart if what it is seeing is it or not. Right? And this is when you realize there's this concept where in Vedanta they call it sanskara. Do you know? Which means impressions. So what this means is that sometimes you might think you're you, but then you see the you it constitutes of impressions. So what it is I created a term for this. This is what I consider one of my most important talks, where I created the term the eventron, the eventon. And I was making this argument that the smallest unit of a particle, we're saying like an atom, right? So I'm saying, if the smallest unit of the mind of Plato's, not Plato, Descartes' non-dual mind-body dualism, the interdimensionality of the mind. My eyes have come to a world where I have tried my best and it's given me a feedback, Do you know what it is for me? I think nobody is disconnected with the the transcendental nature of reality. It's just that they don't treat the world as alive. So it's as if, imagine like the world is alive and we're treating it as lifeless, and the world's like, yo, why are people ignoring me? I brought them here. Yo, can you imagine like two friends back in the day? One of them's trying to show off, right? And imagine, it's like these two girls, and one of them's like, yo, I cried last night. I cried a lot last night. I'm so fragile and emotional. And then the other girl, imagine, is in some sense like, I cried so much last night that the rain that in some sense, the rain of last night's storm was my tears. What it is I'm just trying to, what else can I do? In the middle of nowhere, we just have to apply the advanced strategy. And I was like, okay, so does that mean I have to carry a banner? And the cosmos was like, intuitively, it was like, yeah. So what this means is my effort, my energy, life force is going with this approach where I am serving this kingdom. But what the kingdom is, and the king and queen is the future. That means the crown is never on a human being's head. It's on the idea of the greatness of the future generations. That's it. That means we are all bowing down to the greatness of our future. That is the inconceivable. Think about it. What are like inconceivable ideas? The idea of space, which is the idea of the witnessing, all witnessing of God, right? And then the idea of the future, which hasn't happened, so it's inconceivable. These are two inconceivable access points of man's attention in the current reality. So what that means is, when you realize in the future we might be a timeless being, meaning that that explains like spirit guides, right? That means it's like what people thought were spirit guides could be like their future self. And they're like, yo, how did the spirit know how to guide you? It's like, ta-da, it's your future self. That's my theory, right? I mean, I'm a kind of maverick. Like I decided like that's the style, right? So for me, if somebody's like, yo, how do you see the prophets of religions? To me, they were like time travelers. They literally behaved like how a time traveler would. A time traveler would come back and try to change the world's context. Do you understand? That's like time traveler symptoms, It's like when somebody wants to change their world, they're like, yo, man, you're acting like a time traveler, relax. And the person's like, yo, but the future generations. What it is it's really what we're living for. By the way, guys, the laptop is at 10%, which literally means like 5 minutes. I feel like I gotta write something down here. So, one option is an unknown being in an unknown noun experiencing a known verb until it returns to the unknown noun. So this is one option, dear viewers. This is one unique framework. Okay. Another option, I would say, is in some sense that you are a known I shouldn't say noun and verb here, even though people saw it, I guess, but I'm going to change it to an unknown being experiencing a known journey until it returns to being the unknown again, to being the unknown again, or as the French say, egon. Ejon. I think that's the French way of saying again. Ejon. Okay, it's pretty much like this. Okay, I'm complicating this. It's unknown, known, unknown. This is one view. Then in some sense it's known, unknown, and then known, right? This is like heaven, on earth, and then trying to go back to heaven. And the unknown would be the secular, so this would be like secular option. Secular human psychological option. And we have, in some sense, the transcendental. I mean, like, religion is a transcendental narrative. That means religion is like what revelation is, I find, is like some glitch in the system that is suddenly we were capable to realize that our relationship with the other is through reception. So what it is like, it's as if mankind's relationship with the higher dimensions is that he receives, right? And if you're giving to the higher dimensions, then you're not, like, let's say you might be a resident of Brahma Loka, but you might be in, like, you might be on earth kind of like, doing something. So our natures, our presence, in this lifetime, I've had the most unique dream life. I've had a dream of hell, and I've had a dream of heaven. I'm not kidding. These were two rare dreams, right? That in some sense were so bizarre that I termed them as hell and heaven. The heaven one was so bizarre because it was experientially like a state of such free being that as if right now we have so many human emotions covering the way we actually can feel the moment. Where it's as if all these yogis that say Satchit Ananda, meditate until you feel bliss, conscious existence is bliss, that bliss is always there. Everybody who's praying to God, God's like, yo, I'm right here, what are you guys doing? Look around, who do you think did this? And people are like, yo, we still praying though, I think, I don't know, what we doing? But anyways, what it is wonder about your world, care for your world, and if you're smart, you'll love your world. Why? Because why, like, if you don't love your world, you don't get to see what it can do. Right? That's my argument. That's how I was, like, able to completely, like, literally, I haven't the concept of hatred. I barely even think about it. Do you know? Not barely, but in the sense, like, that the idea of to hate something is me being a state of mind, and it's like the hatred is not external, right? So it's as if our emotions are like revelations of how what is actually happening is an inner event. And Mr. Within is like, yo, humanity, instead of freaking yourself out and fighting over truth, acknowledge that you're just like a multiplayer online video game. There's 8 billion beings in one existential outer server, physical server, and there's 8 billion beings each having their own inner realm or inner private server. So outer public server and inner private server. And so the vision is to wonder about what you are. It's as if, like, more intriguing than any teacher is like you noticing like you're meeting yourself for the first time in every moment. You're meeting your own potential. Sometimes when I'm upset and sad, I'm like, yo, mind, is this the level of your creativity? Like, how boring. you know? Do you know, it's like, I don't know, sometimes I have this view of myself where I'm like, like I have like the energy it takes to think that I'm a thought could be the same energy for it to think I'm any thought. So it's another way of saying like where my attention goes, my reality can animate or bring to life. Because the nature of the mind is that it's accumulating simulations of itself. Really what it is let me tell you how fascinating, you know, the human civilization is. It's literally a genetical program on a surface of the rock that has understood by subjectively self-simulating itself, it can create an illusion of its own eternalism. So DNA is acting like an alien. It's acting otherworldly. You know, it's like you could bring 1,000 evolutionary biologists in front of me, and they're like, "Yo, you know, we evolved from animals. We're just animals, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man. But we also the object evolved into a subject to itself. What do you do about that?" You know, it's like when you look at your when somebody thinks of like, "Yo, I love like my children or my family and friends or world and species and all of this." It's like, what is that? That's like an inner relationship of an event happening. It's like how energy is being with everything. And so all I can say is thank you for listening. You know, truth is how the moment is present to be it. We are the divinity in the room. We are what's moving in the middle of nowhere. It's like that seems divine right there. You know, the fact that something's moving in the middle of nowhere, that there is shape and geometry in the middle of nowhere. It's as if like somebody came and set up the stage, and we all came up as actors and think we built this stage. It's really so ridiculous. But anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Share, subscribe, comment, like, and I guess, you know, in the comment section, I've written subtitle as Species Awakening from the Dreams of Language. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I was talking about. That's another way of saying the title. But I think the subtitle, I'm going to change it. It's like, why does existence exist? Alright, thanks for listening, guys. Much blessings, and always rise, mankind, guys.